All right, MA Marignon, turn 67, and I'm back to recording these live. The situation has deteriorated considerably, and this is, apparently not the last turn before attacks can be launched. So turn 68 is when our nap with Shiniyama will end, as they have ended that, and also when our nap with Asphodel will end. I kind of assumed that Aryu's nap would tick down at the same time. They're all non-aggression pact 3s, and since Aryu ended their non-aggression pact more or less in response to us ending our non-aggression pact with Asphodel, I just made the assumption that they would all end at the same time. It definitely crossed my mind. Probably should confirm with Aryu that we had the same idea about when it would be ending. Clearly, I did not. Clearly, Aryu felt it ended one turn earlier, so we are not prepared for this, which is unfortunate. It's not the end of the world. We were planning on spreading out some witch hunters to summon some fire elementals. This way, at least, we will get a look at what Aryu is doing, because there is the danger that they've put a lot of fire resistance gear on their thugs. But this does mean that we have a bunch of undefended provinces, including possibly a place where we are going to be where we are constructing a fort. So that's just the nature of it. I've been kind of busy in the real world, unfortunately, right now. Things don't always line up for your Dominions campaigns. So without further ado, let's take a look at this. Let's see, we have, I think this is Agartha claiming a throne, so they are at least, battling back decently well. They've been doing a good job holding Aryu off. They actually posted in the game chat a pretty successful victory. So they are now officially our ally. And then let's see. We finally claimed that throne that we took off of Phalegra. Tell how in tune I am with this game for getting my own throne claims. We're, of course, spying on things, bringing in some great eagles, some undead, because we're expecting another elven attack to follow in the not too distant future. From Yis, and we're always bringing in our wolves and werewolves, bringing in another Harbinger. We are definitely going to need those. And then these are probably Cloud Trapeze attacks. By these lords. No fire resistance gear, though, so that is excellent news. And it's a real shame that, we weren't able to to actually get our witch hunters out in position, but they'll recapture territory with fire elementals just as easily as they would have defended it. So there's a scout here for some reason from Aryu. It's interesting. This guy also no fire resistance gear. This is probably one of our unforted temples. What do you bet? Maybe not, because we're recruiting flagellants there. But yeah, I'm expecting that they'll be able to clean that out. It's pretty garbage province defense. I'm not sure why the scout was there. That's probably a misclick, I would imagine. So yeah, we're losing a lot of territory here, which is not a good way to start the war, especially since we're going to be attacked by Asphodel, who can raid not as effectively, but still pretty effectively. Centaur stealthy, Harpies are stealthy, though really it's the Centaur that are the danger. So yeah. Oh hey, here we go. Here we have a guy, although I don't think he has any, he does have a fire gem. Excellent. Good work past me. So yeah, this is essentially what we were planning on doing. Probably would have provided a bit more province defense, right, if I was actually anticipating having to guard this. Looks like that's an attack rear, but it does work out for us, and right. So this could have gone a lot better for us because, I don't know, attacking, obviously Aryu wasn't really planning on this war, at least not this early, I don't think. We're both major powers, so of course we're going to be eyeing each other and thinking about okay, eventually what am I going to need? But probably Aryu didn't have the time to forge fire resistance gear. After all, they did only have 3 turns. This definitely is a location with an unforted temple, so that's probably not going to go well because there's a vine shield here, and magic resistance is not something any of these units really do. So you never know, we might get lucky, but pretty much this is what has been happening the whole time that we haven't really been watching. But once we manage to get our fire elementals out there No, that's a different one. Wait, no, okay. Oh, our enchantress must have just retreated. And she did retreat successfully. That's good. So yeah, she was just out and about site searching, because like I said, I thought I had one more turn. Speaking of site searching, we do find a nature site, a Druid's Grave. That's a nature gem. Very nice. We find another magic site, Rage Flame Tower. I think this actually provides foreign recruitment of a mage, although I'm pretty sure it's a fire mage. And as Marignon, that's not really something we're in short supply of, but it probably is also fire gems, so we like fire gems. A few other misses, our blood hunters doing a decent job, and then we witness a few battles between Alm and Asphodel. Actually, Asphodel and a few other people. Obviously, Asphodel is fighting a bunch of other people. That is why we are trying to backstab them. This looks like an Iron Angel, pretty heavily kitted, which is a middle-aged Almish summon. Kind of interesting kit. Let's see, Crown of the Titans. Probably being used for enlargement, as maybe being worried about getting trampled, I guess. Maybe just want the extra hit points, although no regeneration on this fellow. Not sure. Yeah, okay, they're not constructs, so they can regenerate. Anyway, this is a somewhat divisive unit. It's a lot of kit, definitely. A lot of people feel that these Iron Angels aren't really worth all the investment. They cost a decent number of Earth gems to summon in before you even kit them. They are not mages themselves, but it does work out for them there. Pretty light investment in terms of province defense. You certainly don't need to spend that many gems to capture a province like that. But Vanheim, also not done. This is a ton of sacreds. Not a whole lot in the way of mage support, though. No gems. Doesn't look like really, just one commander. This is a really scary army for Vanheim, that is. Because, all it takes is the one commander getting sniped, and that's a lot of turns of recruitment. And it's kind of interesting that they're set to fire. I do forget that these Elven cavalry often come with javelins, which, that's cool, I guess. I don't know. I don't really like to have elves spending time exchanging missile fire, because, pops their glamour. And, I mean, they are more accurate than like humans in terms of the the ranged attacks, but I don't know. I'm definitely no elf expert. And then let's see, we have an attack. Oh right, hey, cool, excellent. We were just trying to summon this guy in, to quote unquote friendly territory. So these were both magic phase attacks. It wouldn't have been an attack if we hadn't lost the province. But this is not going to work out for us, because wolves are awful, and this spell is kind of awful. But, of course, we are casting it for free. Yep, there goes the werewolf. So, in the werewolf's defense, he had no kit. I think a kitted werewolf at least has a chance, and we're planning on kitting him. Probably to fight against raiders or, do raiding of our own. And then let's see, there's a regular phase battle. I give Ariu a hard time about jumping the gun with the nap. Although, like I said, I didn't, neither of us reached out. I think Ariu is fairly busy right now as well. This looks like one of our forts. And I had started to set up patrollers on the forts already, just because... mostly so I didn't forget and I'd have less work to do, and on this turn when I was setting up all the rest of the defenses. And I figured, especially too, once it starts to get later in the game, like we don't have an unaggression pact with everyone, right? Like Yisk could drop in on us at any point. So we have a lot of research. We have a lot of mages. Like it's kind of worth it, I think, at this point to just have a mage patrolling on every fort, to provide something that's going to mess up raiders. And like, yeah, you do lose some research, but in this case, that was just a ping gone wrong, I guess, because he wasn't set to retreat. Probably just, Ariu has a million things to do, I'm sure, so setting scouts to retreat is like not a big deal. They're not worried about it. So they're just taking a look. I'm not sure where this is, which fort it is. It could be on top of our throne. And then let's see, we witness a battle between Man and Asphodel. Oh, okay, maybe not a battle. A ping as well, it looks like. So Asphodel pinging with a harpy. No, Asphodel going to take a province with a harpy. I suspect this might be like a dead province. So Asphodel just knows that, like, once the province... No, Asphodel retreats. I have no idea what happened here. Maybe this is a place where Man was sieging, right? And they pulled out, and so Asphodel was just trying to check, like, if, they're still on top of the fort. But yeah, who knows what happened there. That's an odd one. And then we are attacking Phlegra. This is intended, and it looks like there's just retreats here. No province defense, so no leadership. We're able to take this with our army. We did more or less leave the throne uncovered, so I'm not sure we'll actually push in, especially now. I wasn't 100% sure that Ariu was going to attack us. Wow, I'm 99% sure they were going to attack us. I just wasn't sure how hard, but it's definitely looking like fairly hard. We prosecuting the war against Phlegra further will kind of open up a second front with Asphodel, which probably will get opened anyway, because Asphodel has been attacking Phlegra. But on the other hand, there's a good chance that the frog people, Xibalba, will be attacking us as well, although I don't think they've ended their nap with us, and we have not ended it with them. So this is a storm of a Manish fort by one of the main stacks of Asphodel, who happily is very far away from us. But I have to say Asphodel has been complaining a decent amount, and in fairness, we've talked about how absolutely not fair that we're jumping in, and Asphodel is one of, if not the worst nations in the game, so the fact that they're getting 4v1'd speaks to this player's quality. But if we had not jumped in, I am not convinced that their position is that bad. We'll take a look at it on the map, but they've taken another fort here off of their enemies. They successfully defended their fort against man. Granted, they took really heavy losses doing so. But yeah, and against Ulm, they wiped out one of the Ulmish forces that was threatening one of their forts. I'm not at all convinced that they couldn't have prevailed against this 3v1, which really was a 2.5v1, because Vanheim was, maybe still is, in a pretty weak position. So without us jumping in, I'm not at all convinced that this war would have gone against Asphodel. And frankly, even with us jumping in now that I'm assuming that they've done the diplomatic legwork, because Shiniyama also ended their non-aggression pact. So now, we're going to be fighting. I guess, technically we're in a 4v1 too, right? Because we're still fighting Phlegra now. Granted, Phlegra is down to 2 provinces and is pretty checked out. I think they staled this turn or the turn before. And yet Phlegra is definitely in a weaker position than Vanheim. But if we really wanted to drum up the sympathy, we're in a 4v1 as well. We might be in a 5v1 if Yis decides to jump in. Now, granted, that has not kicked off yet. With Shiniyama and Asphodel, it will kick off this coming turn. But still, we're gonna be fighting a lot of enemies, and we're not going to be able to commit as much against Asphodel as we were originally intending, and obviously that does not go well for man. Just good to double check, you never know. And then we have some unexpected events. Okay, we got rid of the fertility cult. This is excellent. Unfortunately, wait, no, we did not get rid of the fertility cult. We just killed its leader, I guess. Yeah, let's see, rooted out by faith or sword, so probably be easier to preach if it weren't for the fact that, we're being attacked by Ariu all over the place over here, so we're just going to have to let this one go probably, at least for the moment, probably for the game. And the Marignon's Inquisition, always grinding on, and then let's see, rival word of a pretender, dominion change, this isn't the end of the world, bad omens, we're pretty used to that. We do patrol out a scout, we're happy about that. I think this is on the border with Asphodel, so not as relevant. Also, patrolling out a Phlegran scout, and then another Yissian scout. So with as many scouts as we've caught from Yiss, I think it's very, very likely that Yiss will be attacking us, and I will catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. I will probably miss a few things. This isn't as complicated as it looks. This is what I was planning on having, I guess, what would have been last turn, right? We wanted to catch Ariu raiders, although actually, on reflection, the fact that Ariu jumped the gun, and I did chat with them, and honestly, neither of us are really 100% sure, and it's one of the reasons usually when I end naps, I like to do it in the in-game messaging system, because then there's no confusion about, when the nap ending actually arrived. But regardless, I don't think it would have mattered, right? Because my plan was, the turn before hostilities start to do something like this where we're just moving a bunch of mages out, right? So we're okay. Sometimes also knights. Like we do have a variety of answers, but like mostly it's going to be either fire elementals or there's another fire elemental with bodyguards, or these fellows, right, who have a gem and they're just going to be spamming Pillar of Fire like behind some of our province defense. So that's kind of the majority of what these moves are and what we're looking at. But anyway, didn't matter that Ariu jumped the gun because I was planning on moving them out, the turn before hostilities, but they would have happened after the magic phase movements. So, I mean, I guess at best we would have then bumped with the Raider. But yeah, you should always double check with people to make sure that you're on the same page with when exactly the non-aggression pack is ending. And I knew that, and I didn't act on it. So this is as much my fault as Ariu's. And definitely no hard feelings on either side. And we're not going to guess about where the elves are going to go. We're just going to send people more or less everywhere we couldn't quite reach, like say this swamp. But yeah, pretty much the plan is have an answer in every province, every single turn, pretty much from here on out. This is obviously costing us a lot in terms of research, but I mean, our research is still good enough. I don't know. Certainly, people reach higher targets than this more quickly, but I don't really feel like we're missing out on anything. I mean, right, we have some blood magic queued up. We don't really need blood magic. We, a little bit higher in conjuration. Yeah, we have conjuration 7 queued. That would be nice. We can, get a couple of our national spells that we don't really need, like the livings. Summoning a bunch of elementals would be nice. Most of these things are nice to have, not really required. So, and again, we still have decent research. We're still, pushing mages out every turn. Ariu actually felt, we were just kind of chatting back and forth. They felt that I kind of had this game wrapped up, which is not at all how I feel, which is perhaps just due to my inexperience. Maybe I'm not saying my position is bad. I do think we're in a good place here. Other than all these wars that are about to kick off for us. But yeah, I'm not sure about wrapped up. Obviously, Ariu's in a very strong position. I would say that Asphodel was in a strong position. Obviously now fighting a lot of people, that's much more difficult. Also the fact that they're Asphodel, so as the game goes on, assuming they don't manage some of those really nasty undead globals, things like Utter Dark, as the game goes on, life gets harder for them. Also, I think Yis is not out of this. I think it's going to be hard for them to win from a throne standpoint just because there's only the one underwater throne. But I don't think they've taken any major losses. I mean, we've seen an absolutely terrifying doom stack from them. So anyway, we'll see. But yeah, I have been giving some more thought about how we're actually going to close this game out. Not a ton of thought. Not enough thought that there's an explicit plan yet. But I do think that the number of opponents that we're going to be facing shortly, and even honestly that we're already facing, I don't think we eat Ariu by the time the game finishes, right? And, prosecute other wars and take thrones. So we're kind of to the point in the game where we're big enough, taking more territory is nice, but we probably should really be focusing on territory that's going to net us thrones. So to that end, we are going to be focusing our attacks on one of our weaker opponents. So Shiniyama here ended their non-aggression pact with me. I think I mentioned they just felt I was getting a little too large, which understandable. And they have a throne that's not very well defended. And then there's also another throne here that's untaken. Now, we could go through Asphodel's territory to get to this throne, and we're also, coming at it up from the other direction. But I just feel we need this throne, and we want this throne, so probably we just should eliminate Shiniyama. And we're still going to attack Asphodel, absolutely. I think our main armies, for the most part, are actually going to start going after Shiniyama's stuff. We are somewhat worried about this stack, so we have a bunch of stuff patrolling here, mostly just Pillar of Fire behind our province defense. We'll see how it goes. We could lose quite a few mages here, but I also think they're going to deal enough damage that this isn't really going to be a credible force anymore, and we do really want to remove this because, we're already going to be playing a lot of defense inside of our territory because we're going to have elves and then possibly sea elves, and then I'm sure Asphodel either already has or will sneak stuff in. So, we're going to be doing a lot of counter raiding, but I don't really want to have to deal with, an army marauding around inside our territory. So we're moving this army down to this province here, and then we'll probably jump on top of this fort and then, crack it, take it kind of situation. The main reason for shifting, I definitely do want to take these forts from Asphodel, but all of a sudden, right, they have cold scales in them, despite being inside our dominion just a little bit. And despite the fact that it's not yet winter, it is fall, although it's headed towards winter, so that's not ideal. Because it looks like Asphodel, like a lot of undead nations, is taking full cold scales, and the fact that both of these forts, all of a sudden, the provinces turn cold. I suspect Asphodel is, using spells to lower the temperature, and the plan is to hit, my armies when they move in with Murdering Winter, which would be really nasty. So we're not going to move in. We're not going to fall into those traps. We'll fall into other traps, no doubt. So we are still hitting a lot of provinces. Yeah, we're not actually going to hit this fort. I think I just ran out of raiders because, again, the plan was to hit this fort with this army. But, I'm not really interested in sending it to its death on the strategic map. But for this fort, we do have some raiders in place, right? So we're going to hit it with 2 werewolves. And I'm pretty sure the plan is probably just to sit in the fort, right? Because, I have this army right here, so, he has to respect that. What will be the point of patrolling? This is not enough stuff to take on our army. So my expectation is these troops are going to sit in the fort, and then they're going to want to, Murdering Winter, whatever jumps on top. Now, whether or not our werewolves will be able to keep the fort locked down, that I'm less sure of. I still don't fully have a plan for how we're going to deal with these forts, but at minimum getting them locked down and honestly just marauding around and forcing Asphodel to continue to waste, gems, lowering, we want them to lower the temperature in Nabah as well. And then we need to get more preachers, right? Now our friars are starting to preach in enemy territory, so we're going to try to, push our dominion, and as our dominion moves in, right, our heat scales are going to move in, so it's going to be a lot more expensive and a lot more difficult for Asphodel to keep these provinces at a low temperature. And once the temperature rises, we'll give it a shot. People say that you can still cast Murdering Winter in a province with full heat. It just doesn't do as well. So I don't know the exact break points. Probably should look that up before I move in. But my understanding is it's not so bad if you're in heat scales. We'll probably also try to put together an army that is resistant to, strategic nukes. This army is already kind of starting to get there, right? We have some of our major casters. This lady, she's been given extra hit points, so we need some more coral swords, things like that, probably some cold resistance gear. So, this army isn't really there yet, and obviously, we can't ever take our human units into something like that, but we do have, a good amount of Great Eagles running around, and Great Eagles have so many hit points, they'll be fine. So we'll probably just, use a stack of Great Eagles and, I don't know, maybe a few other summons combined with some mages that can actually deal with Murdering Winter, but that is going to take us a few turns to put together. So in the meantime, like I said, our armies are probably going to more focus on Shiniyama simply out of necessity. We're also just doing a bunch of raiding, just random, mostly fire elementals. So for now, I think, fire elementals are going to be fine. They're really effective in both raiding and counter raiding. For Ariu, once they start slotting in a decent amount of fire resistance gear, then we're going to have to rethink our strategies and, probably move more towards a troop-based answer, which, we'll see, probably led by some sort of counter-thug paladin. We'll have to try to figure out the kit for that. We do see some potential invasion forces from Ariu, so I think this was actually probably mostly just trying to patrol out. You can see we're not the only ones with a fertility cult, so that's probably what this is about, but at the same time, the 70 units could certainly move against us, probably will. And then we have something on our border here, which is a stack of sacreds. So, we've got a decent amount of stuff on the border, so we should be able to hold out in our forts, but ideally we don't get locked in. So we're going to drop our Horror Harmonica Golem on this stack and see how that goes. Worst case scenario, we can redirect one of our armies up in this direction if we really need to, but I'm hoping that, we're going to be able to recruit enough stuff and our garrisons will be strong enough that, we can deal with this push without having to redirect one of our armies. So that more or less covers it in the south. Like I said, the heavier blow in terms of taking infrastructure and things like that is going to be against Shiniyama, both because I think it's going to be easier and, we want to remove opponents. Yeah, we've reached the point where, we're never going to remove all of our opponents, but even if we can remove one, like I think Shiniyama we can remove by the end of the game, and we're going to need this throne. So, that's why we're going to focus in that direction. We do still want to put pressure on Asphodel, and as soon as we put together an army that can actually deal with Murdering Winter, then we're planning on, starting to take this infrastructure. Obviously, the longer that we take, the more time that we give them, to build up in this area. And they're still doing pretty well, honestly, in this war. Ulm has been raiding pretty deep, but it's disconnected. They're not drawing income off of it. I don't think Ulm has taken any infrastructure, at least not that we've seen. We weren't really familiar exactly with what the borders were before the war started, so, possibly Ulm took the Citadel or something, but I think this was roughly their border, so, Ulm doesn't look like they've made, a ton of inroads. Man has dropped off of this fort. Right, there's just a single monk holding it down. There's something here, but this fort is not cracked, right? So I'm imagining this is probably just another Almost Raider. There's a big stack. This is where the stack of fans are, but again, this army is just terrifying. So I don't really foresee this doing all that much, despite the fact that there's a lot of sacreds there. And then, Asphodel just took more infrastructure off of Man, and this army is doing fine, so... Again, is Asphodel in a good position right now? No, but are they losing? Not yet, I don't think. So, we'll see. Hopefully, us putting pressure on, even simply by ending our non-aggression pact, that's hopefully taking pressure off of those guys because, reinforcements that would have been heading their way are now probably heading our way. So yeah, that's kind of the, we'll see how this war starts with Asphodel and Shiniyama, and then, what Airyu sends in next. They certainly have plenty more of those thugs. We saw a screenshot from Agartha where they had an army with 34 of them. So, and that's probably not their only army like that. They are quite large, same as us, and this is starting to hit the late game. In the north here, a few more raids, basically anywhere we can hit it. Our wolves, the wolf cannon is going to hit this province. Right? Only one officer, a few loyal henchmen. It's a forest. Fingers crossed. And then, if he survives, we'll send that werewolf to get kitted. I think we're sending... Oh, we're just sneaking. We're sneaking a werewolf across here. Just want to see, this is an unforted temple, so maybe there's a lot of province defense here, and a lot of our werewolf kit is a little on the suspect side, right? Because, this is items that we've just gotten. Not completely. I think we stole this from our problem solver kit, and we've been making the lion pelts, but the sword we got, I think the boots we got. So anyway, a lot of our werewolf kit is just kind of what we had on hand because it's free. I don't really think a Sword of Swiftness is actually great for clearing province defense, but it's kind of it should work against 6 PD. So anyway, yeah, various werewolf raiders running around, raiders in the north as well. And then yeah, speaking of the north, I'm a little hesitant to move. This army actually doesn't have any, foul vapors protection. We're right on the border here with Asphodel, and while Asphodel's probably pretty busy with Ulm over here, and we don't really see a whole lot, they do have plenty of stealthy units, and we could get gassed. So we're just pulling back for a second. I don't think we have anybody quite ready yet. Yeah, Nature Mages, again, we've been trying to do a good amount of foreign mage recruitment, but we don't have a ton of Nature Mages. So we might even just hang out on top of this throne fort for a second. We do, want to take out Phalegra, but I don't think we're going to be able to do that, without Asphodel messing with us. So, and I'm expecting, we're probably going to get hit by some raiders on this front as well. And we don't really control, right? This has a scout in it, this throne fort, so we don't really control this location yet. Would like to spend a little bit of time recruiting up a bit of a garrison. Obviously, Xibalba is building up. I think there's only, they could go underwater to mess with Yis, and I was tempted to reach out and see what their thoughts were on that, but there's just, I don't know. There's no way they're going to win against us either. But I think, going underwater is probably going to be more difficult for them, although Xibalba does actually get a lot of amphibious troops. I'm pretty sure all their frogs, are amphibious, and I don't think they're poor amphibians, so they could theoretically go underwater. But we're also we have a fort in their cap circle. Yeah, we would make more sense, I think, for them to go after. So they haven't ended the non-aggression pact yet, but I don't think it's going to be all that long. And then, of course, this is also a location that Yis could attack. It's also a location that Ulm could attack, Asphodel could attack. Anyway, all this to say, like, we don't really control this yet, and, while this is just a lot of garbage for the most part, there's also, quite a few casters in here, like 5 white mages, right? There's a decent amount of super combatants. And like this army still is like somewhat reduced. We don't really have a front line anymore. Yeah, this is our front line. We do have a ton of knights with this army. So probably we could get away with this actually now that I'm looking at this. So we'll probably just pick up our, Serpent's Blessing caster to make sure that we don't get hit with poison, and then we'll move out against Falegra. The other thing too is that I do have a lot of crossbowmen in the armies, and in some ways we don't need Serpent's Blessing, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because we have poison resistance on the Bless, right? So we have full poison resistance on the Bless, and if we start to use the Flagellants and our knights and our national commanders, they're all sacred. So, we can just bless, and then that's the same. That's actually better than having Serpent's Blessing. But most of our armies do want to mix in other mages. But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it and talking through it, it might just be worth it to start forging some like poison resistance gear and then slapping that onto the commanders that don't have it, and then that way we don't have to worry about Serpent's Blessing. And then either we can bring crossbowmen along, and then once we get hit with foul vapors, then that army will lose those crossbowmen. So we'll see. Foul Vapors is still easier and in a lot of ways cheaper in the nature gems, right? Because if we have to forge poison resistance gear, we're using a decent number of foreign mages usually, like in our armies, right? That are not sacred. Well, actually, yeah, I forgot these ladies or these whatever these angels, these divine beings are sacred. So yeah, we actually only have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so only 3 non-sacred commanders in this, and I'm pretty sure trying to poison a Lamia Queen, yeah, not too useful. So really, other than the crossbowmen, of which we have a lot, we do have to worry a bit about an HP route, especially for an army like this. So like this army, simply because it has so many crossbowmen, kind of does need foul vapors. But anyway, since we're going to be getting hit with foul vapors a lot, I suspect, so we're probably going to want to transition into just like purely sacred armies. Maybe not everywhere, but just like smaller, purely sacred armies that are still like dangerous enough, but maybe aren't gonna have quite so many eggs stacked into them as I tend to do, because we're all gonna be getting hit with like Murdering Winter. So yeah, I haven't really had a chance to like think through exactly what it's gonna look like. It'd probably be pretty simple, really just like Solar Eclipse, a stack of Flagellants, some Knights, and then just our Witch Hunters and things like that for fire evocations and fire elementals. And that's gonna be pretty dangerous. That's gonna defeat a lot of things, and it's not going to have to worry about foul vapors, and if it gets nuked, it's not the end of the world. But anyway, we don't have any armies like that, but in coming turns, hopefully. I will say our money situation is not great. We probably would behoove us to lose some of these armies. So we're not actually doing a ton of troop recruitment. Definitely recruiting troops here, mundane troops, because we don't have a temple. That's another thing. We really could use more temples in more places. Marignon, they just all the money, a huge money pit. Not that I'm helping matters, by recruiting a ton of our own sacred cavalry. I did finally turn off the Griffin Riders, which is a bit sad, but they're 100 gold apiece, and they cost 40 gold a year, which is basically a mage. And I don't think we're really using those super effectively yet either. We're using them as bodyguards for Harbingers, but the Harbingers are going to be staying behind the lines doing casting. So probably as we get more Harbingers and can actually start to throw some of them into attacks, basically using them as like army thugs, we'll probably shift the Griffin Riders over to be bodyguards for them, because we really want the Griffin Riders to be fighting. We are still trying to build some forts, right? We have a fort under construction here, and then let's see, yeah, we have a fort under construction here. So, now that Ariu is attacking us, we might still try to do more fort construction along the coast here against Yis, but yeah, it's going to be a little harder. We were hoping to have a few more turns before everything kicked off. But yeah, we're just, we're not going to be we're going to be susceptible to raiding, basically. And then in terms of Ariu, like, we don't really want most of their territory, right? Like, most of their thrones are pretty far away. Like, maybe this throne, we we do want. We do need to consider that Eriu has Dark Skies up right now, and not to forget that Man has Vengeful Water up, which I definitely did forget. So yeah, Dark Skies is going to be a big problem, right? Enemy morale lowered for one by one for each point of dominion. And, they have at least, on the bordering provinces, it's not so bad, but as we push deeper into their territory, places like this is going to be extremely brutal. So pushing mundane armies deep into their territory is going to be really difficult. So we'll probably raid them, although even our raiders, like the werewolves, we got to be somewhat careful about. That's actually why this werewolf has a morale hat, right? So he has very high morale, but it's going to go down, a lot here. So morale is going to be a problem even for our raiders in Eriu's territory. Our astral income is good enough that we could certainly attempt a dispel, and we might, or we might try to overwrite it with another global. I'm not sure what that other global would be, so if we do try to attack it, it'll probably be with a dispel. But we may just leave it up and try to work around it, right? Because again, I don't know. We don't need to destroy Eriu to win this game. Like, we just need to get this throne, so we could honestly just use friars, right, to stealth into some of these provinces and just create a bridge of, our own dominion. That'll be difficult on top of forts that are being patrolled, but, maybe we just go around this and then we just push in and take it, or, maybe even we build some super combatants. Eventually we can get some angels that can, teleport or things like that, and then just try to jump on this this province. We also, want to wait until it's in Eriu's hands. Agartha, haven't talked with Agartha, but just Agartha is now our ally since we're both fighting Eriu. So I certainly don't want to take it off of Agartha. But yeah, I imagine that this province is going to go back and forth. But anyway, all this to say that, we're probably not really going to push hard on a lot of Eriu's holdings and really focus on eliminating their raiding, maybe forting up our border and getting a lot of temples on our border, and then starting to push our dominion, and then anywhere that our dominion pushes into, then that we can contest and try to take and hold. But we're not really going to be focusing too much on the offensive against Eriu. Like I said, to start with, we're going to focus pretty heavily on Shiniyama, and then still also try to put a lot of pressure on Asphodel, and then those attacks hopefully will net us 2 more thrones. Then of course the other thing too is just in trying to be ready for Yis, we are probably going to build up a substantial amount of stuff that can go underwater. And Yis's Doomstack is not going to move very fast, so if they end up moving their Doomstack against us, we may just sidestep it. We'll still try to fight it with other things, but we'll take our underwater stuff, and this maybe is going to be the last throne, just because it's not going to be expected. I don't think Yis is going to garrison it that heavily. We're actually moving somebody on top to take a look, because we don't know exactly where their Doomstack is, but once they finish off Pelagia, there really isn't anyone to threaten it, and like I said, I think they have pretty good relations with Atlantis, so we'll see what kind of garrison they leave there, but my suspicion is that, they'll recruit mages, maybe leave some troops, but it won't be heavily defended because, who's going to be attacking it? So we'll see. We're a long way from that. Who knows? Maybe Yis doesn't even attack, but I doubt it. So anyway, I think that more or less covers turn 67.